President Fattah al-Sisi received on Tuesday General Q Gatluak, the security advisor to South Sudan's president. The meeting was attended by General Intelligence Chief Lieutenant General Abbas Kamel. During the meeting, the South Sudanese security advisor handed President al-Sisi a message from President Salva Kiir. The message reviewed means of boosting bilateral ties and latest developments in Sudan. The meeting also discussed efforts to settle the crisis and security of the Sudanese people, as well as humanitarian and political challenges to the country. The two sides stressed the importance of urging Sudanese sides to keep truce and moving to permanent and comprehensive ceasefire. They said the permanent ceasefire would allow humanitarian aid into the country and open the path for a constructive dialogue to settle crisis and continue with transitional path and political process to keep the unity of Sudan. Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri headed to Juba to convey a message from President Fattah al-Sisi to South Sudan's President Salva Kiir on the situation in Sudan. This came after wrapping up his visit to Chad's capital N'Djamena. During his visit to Chad, the top diplomat delivered message from President Sisi to Chadian President Mohamed Idris Deby. During a meeting with Chadian President, Shukri reviewed Egypt's efforts since the start of Sudan's crisis with the two struggling sides to reach a ceasefire. He also pointed that Egypt has received more than 60,000 of Sudanese fleeing from military confrontations. The two sides agreed on the necessity of continuing joint coordination to solve the crisis and keep unity and safety of Sudan. And during its 24th session, the Board of Trustees of the National Dialogue expressed full confidence in the support of all parties in the country to national dialogue. In this context, and based on the prompt response to President Fattah al-Sisi to the proposal of the Board of Trustees of Dialogue for full judicial supervision in general elections, the board hopes all parties will continue the necessary positive effort to prepare the atmosphere for upcoming elections. The Board of Trustees held presidential pardon decisions for more prisoners within the President's constitutional powers and looks forward to continuation of issuing more of such decisions during the upcoming period, and wishes that the Presidential Pardon Committee to intensify its legal efforts to release more detainees. And the United Nations said heavy fighting in Sudan has led to 700,000 people being internally displaced since middle of April, adding the figure has doubled in a week. Details in the coming report.
In the framework of Cairo's intensive efforts to return Egyptians and foreigners stranded in Sudan, an Egyptian military ship arrived at Safaga port carrying Egyptians and foreigners from Port Sudan. Egyptian authorities continue the evacuation of Egyptians and other nationalities from the country. Meanwhile, the UN said on Tuesday heavy fighting in Sudan has led to 700,000 people being internally displaced since the middle of April, adding the figure had doubled in a week. Sudan was thrown into chaos when fighting broke out on April 15 between the forces of Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his deputy-turned-rival Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, who heads the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces RSF. At least 750 people have died. Even before the beginning of the fighting, 3.7 million people were registered as internally displaced in the country. Another 150,000 people have fled the country since the beginning of the conflict, according to numbers released by the UN Refugee Agency on Monday. The Sudanese are pinning their hopes on talks in Saudi Arabia between envoys of warring factions to end bloodshed that has killed hundreds and triggered a mass exodus. But there is no sign lasting relief will come anytime soon, as analysts say. There has been no word on the progress of the talks, which began on Saturday between the army and the rival paramilitary Rapid Support Forces in the Saudi Red Sea city of Jeddah.
And Egypt condemned the Israeli escalation in the occupied Palestinian territories. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry stressed its total refusal of such attacks that are contrary with the international law and legislations and worsen the situation to a level that could be out of control in the occupied Palestinian territories and limit efforts of calm and decreasing tension. And Israel killed 3 Palestinian fighters and 10 civilians in surprise airstrikes in Gaza on Tuesday, drawing threats of reprisals from Palestinian factions, signaling it anticipated an imminent flare-up. Israel closed roads in occupied towns near Gaza